What's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we are doing the Champions Report for the WBC, the World Boxing Council, as I continue to do my Champions Reports every 2 months. Now, before we get into that, if you guys like the video, please smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I try to build my channel up here. If you don't like what I'm doing, you could always give me a thumbs down or leave a comment letting me know why. Now, the WBC title is probably the most recognizable title. It's the green belt, highly respected by a lot. And in my Champions Reports, what I do is I cover all title belts and champions from 122 pounds all the way to heavyweight and what they're doing. I update it every 2 months. I did it at the end of February, the end of April, now doing it at the end of June. We'll have one end of August, end of October, and then the end of the year. So let's start at 122 pounds and see what's going on there. Super bantamweight. The reigning and undefeated champion there is Stephen Fulton Jr., who is also the unified champ. He has the WBC and the WBO titles locked up. As we already knew what was coming, July 25th, that's a Tuesday, main event, ESPN from Japan. Stephen Fulton will defend his titles, against the undefeated monster, Naoya Inoue, who was the undisputed champion at 118, has won titles at multiple weight classes, and is trying to, become world champion in another weight class and take over 122. Big time fight right here. Cannot wait to see this fight. I think it's going to be great. I think the winner is going to go on and fight for the undisputed title later in the year against Marlon Topolis. Cannot wait to see it. My prediction on the fight is I'm going with the Inoue, but I do think it's going to be a close, hard-fought battle. But I just think Inoue is going to throw more punches. I think he's going to pressure Stephen Fulton, but not get directly on the inside where Fulton can counterpunch the way he likes. I think he'll try to keep him at the end of his jab and pressure him and try to score points that way and outwork him. But it's going to be good, 50-50 type fight. Can't wait to see it. Again, July 25th, ESPN, Fulton and Inoue for the unified title. Next, 126, featherweight. The champion, the reigning champion there is Ray Vargas. We still don't know when and if Vargas is going to make his mandatory defense against interim champion Brandon Figueroa next. That's supposed to be what's going on, but we don't know if that's going to happen for sure or not yet. Vargas hasn't fought since he lost to Shaki Foster at 130 pounds back in February. Figueroa in March captured the interim title with a hard-fought unanimous decision win over Mark Magsayo. I'm hoping by the next Champions Report in August we know when these two guys are going to be fighting in the second half of this year. So I'm hoping that fight is scheduled. 130 super featherweight. The champion there is Shaki Foster. He captured his title back in February when he defeated Ray Vargas by unanimous decision. There was talks of him and Joe Cordina locking horns, but Foster has poured, water on that, saying that he doesn't think Cordina wants to fight. Foster is currently a promotional free agent, but he's a tough matchup for a lot of guys, especially the guys at 130 who really haven't established themselves yet. So it's a risky fight to go after Foster, even though he has a title. I really think it could be anybody. He's not in mandatory mode right now to where he has to make a mandatory defense. So I don't believe he has to fight Eduardo, I think, Fernandez, who's his #1 contender. But he might end up going that route, or he might end up fighting just whoever's willing to fight in the top 15. So we'll see what happens, but I'm hoping he gets a decent enough opponent, hopefully a top 10 guy, and I hope by the next Champions Report at the end of August we have his next fight scheduled. 135 lightweight. the reigning WBC and undisputed champion is Devin Haney, who holds all 4 titles at 135. He defeated Vasily Lomachenko by a controversial unanimous decision back in May. And now what we know is that there's 3 options for Haney. Either moving up to 140, which he's expressed prior that he would want to do because it's tough to make the weight. So that's a possibility for him. The second possibility would be for him to, first moving up to 140, Regis Prograis he's expressed interest in a Regis Prograis showdown. And now that Prograis didn't look good in his last fight, it might be more likely that he moves up and goes after a title there at 140. There's also the 2 options at 135 that I think he might stay at 135 and defend that title is. One is a mega fight with Gervonta Tank Davis. That would be one of the options. The other one would be a rematch with Vasily Lomachenko, who's actually his WBC #1 contender. So it would kind of clear up a mandatory anyways and allow him to possibly stay at 135 a little bit longer if he wanted. But right now, I really can't tell you which is the most likely. I want to say that the Tank Davis fight is the 3rd most likely because I don't think Tank wants that fight with Haney. But I still believe the fight with Lomachenko definitely has some legs to it because Haney's received a lot of backlash about how he shouldn't have won that fight. But I also think the 140 option is possible as well. So, gotta wait and see. Hopefully by the next Champions Report, we have an answer about what Devin Haney's doing next, or could be doing next. 140, the reigning champion there is Regis Prograis. Prograis just successfully defended his title with a controversial split decision win over Danielito Zorrilla, where Prograis should have been knocked down officially in the first round. He did come back and score a knockdown himself. He was putting the pressure on Zorrilla, but was reluctant to throw a lot of punches because of Zorrilla's power. And Zorrilla just didn't feel like throwing a lot of punches himself. He did more moving than punching, and I think that's what cost him the fight. But Prograis now, moving forward, there seems to be about 3 options on the table for Prograis right now that seem legitimate. The first would be the Devin Haney option that we just mentioned, because Devin Haney has expressed interest. He skips any mandatory that's ahead of him because he's already the champion at 135. So he would skip ahead of any mandatory fight that Prograis would have. And it's a big time money fight, but it really depends on the kind of contract that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom are going to offer Devin Haney. So we really don't know for sure what's going to happen with Devin Haney and his next, our Regis Prograis, and if that's a serious option or not. It's really up to Haney. The other 2 options are Jack Catterall, which was, projected to be the fight instead of Zorrilla, but now that Catterall got a win under his belt and Prograis got a win, that seems to be the more likely option, or the safest one to pick for now, because both sides are interested. But also, the WBC could definitely order Prograis to fight Sandor Martin as #1 contender, because technically they granted him, he was supposed to make a mandatory defense already against Jose Ramirez, and when all that fell through, they gave him the option to make an optional defense. They said, hey, you can make an optional defense, and that would have been the Zorrilla fight. So Sandor Martin is actually a pretty good sized fight for him, and I definitely think that could be a possibility. Next is that the WBC orders that belt and then Prograis fights him. So we'll see. Next at 147, the reigning and undefeated and unified champion is Errol Spence Jr. He holds the IBF and the WBA super titles at welterweight, along with the WBC. He's got the biggest fight of his career next, Saturday, July 29th, Showtime pay-per-view. Errol Spence Jr. and undefeated WBO champion Terrence Bud Crawford will finally collide to determine an undisputed welterweight champion and really a pound-for-pound front runner with a victory. I can't wait to see this fight. I really think it's going to be great. I'm glad the two sides finally got it done. There's also a rematch clause in the contract for the loser to invoke. And I really do believe we could see these two guys locking horns twice this year, not just once. But my prediction for this first fight is that Bud Crawford is going to defeat Errol Spence and become the undisputed welterweight champion. Now, what does that mean for the WBC title afterwards? We don't know. I think the winner of that fight, either one of them, could vacate 1, 2, or 3 welterweight titles, because he's already claimed undisputed, and they might run into mandatories. Now, the WBC has been pretty cool about allowing the bigger names to hold on to their belts without really any interruption from mandatories. Keith Thurman's the #1 contender in the WBC right now, so I'm sure they would keep him on ice, and Thurman doesn't seem fucking interested in fighting anyways, so what's the difference? But I believe at the end of August, if it's Crawford or if it's Spence, they'll still hold on to the WBC title, but they might not, so we might be seeing a vacant title of sorts at welterweight at the end of August. We'll see. 154 super welterweight, the reigning champion there, reigning WBC and undisputed champion is Jermell Charlo. Charlo, we know, has supposed to have been fighting Tim Tszyu a couple times already this year, but injuries kept him out of the ring. So the WBO, because Tim Tszyu is the WBO interim champion and mandatory challenger, the WBO has ordered Charlo to defend his title, to defend the WBO belt by September. They're discussing an October date at the moment. I think that's what's going to happen for Charlo. I think he's going to put all 4 titles on the line against Tim Tszyu next. And hopefully by the next Champions Report at the end of August, that fight is signed and sealed and good to go for late summer or fall. 160 middleweight. The champion, the undefeated champion there is Jermall Charlo, the inactive undefeated champion. He's been champion for 2 years now without having to fight, but he might have some really good news, likely news. It looks like he is going to move up to 168 and challenge Canelo Alvarez for the undisputed title at 168 in his next fight in September. That's not concrete, written in stone, but Canelo signed a 3-fight deal with the PBC and Showtime, and he wants to, Canelo looks like he's going to be fighting Charlo first, but again, that's not guaranteed, but I think it is going to happen. And once that fight is finalized, it's going to be interesting to see if Charlo is giving up his middleweight title. If that happens by the next Champions Report, Carlos Adames could be upgraded to full champion because he's the interim champion right now, and we could be talking about what Adames is doing next. So hopefully we find out what happens for sure by the next Champions Report. Next, 168 super middleweight, the reigning WBC and undisputed champion is Saul Canelo Alvarez. Now Canelo, we know, well, first off, he defended all 4 of his belts in May and scored a convincing one-sided 12-round unanimous decision over John Ryder, who is his WBO mandatory challenger. Very good performance out of Canelo. And then now, just last week, he signed a 3-fight deal with the PBC and Showtime, and it looks like his first fight is going to be against Jermall Charlo, the undefeated middleweight champion, on September 16th on Showtime pay-per-view. That's not locked in stone yet, though. I think it will be done very soon, but it looks like Canelo and Charlo will be locking horns for September. But at the very least, at the end of the next Champions Report, or at the end of August in the next Champions Report, we will know for sure, and I'll be giving my prediction on whoever Canelo is fighting in September, but it's likely going to be Charlo. Next is 175 light heavyweight. The champion there is the undefeated WBC unified champion, Arthur Beterbiev, who also holds the WBO and IBF light heavyweight titles. Beterbiev is returning on Saturday, August 19th in the main event of an ESPN card where he will defend all 3 of his belts against WBC mandatory challenger and former super middleweight champion Callum Smith. A lot of people are overlooking Callum Smith the way they did Anthony Yarde, and I'm telling you, Callum Smith might be more dangerous than Anthony Yarde. He's taller, he's packed a serious punch since he's moved up to 175. He looks stronger, and it's going to be interesting. This is going to be a good light heavyweight scrap right here between Beterbiev and Callum Smith. My prediction on the fight is that Arthur Beterbiev will break down and stop Callum Smith in the late rounds, but I really believe Callum Smith can win this fight, so we got to wait and see. But Saturday, August 19th, ESPN, Beterbiev and Callum Smith for the WBC and Unified Light Heavyweight Championship of the world. Next up is 200 pounds cruiserweight. The champion there is Badou Jack. He captured that title in February when he upset Ilunga Makabu with a 12th round TKO victory where he broke Makabu down completely and stopped him. Now the 39-year-old Jack, there was talks about him and Canelo. That obviously fell through. But Badou Jack, we really don't have any direction on what he's going to do next. We knew back in February when he was winning the belt that a mandatory title fight, a mandatory eliminator had been ordered between former world title challenger Tabiso Mashunu and former 3-time light heavyweight champion Sergey Kovalev. Haven't heard anything about that fight happening and popping off. And we know Noel Gavor is still the #1 contender in the WBC. So I don't know if the WBC is going to order Jack to defend against Gavor next or what's going to happen. But I'm hoping by the next Champions Report, we know what Jack is doing in the second half of the year. And finally, at heavyweight, the WBC and undefeated reigning champion is Tyson Fury. Fury, we don't know what the hell he's doing next and when he's going to return. He should have been fighting already multiple times. He's been in negotiations with multiple fighters. We know the Usyk fight fell through, and now Fury is just, he said no to how much money Andy Ruiz wanted. Xiao Zhang from China was forced into into a mandatory rematch with Joe Joyce. So it really seems like the best fighters that Fury could fight are off the table, and we don't know what he's going to do next. So hopefully we know something by the next Champions Report. The next Champions Report at the end of August. He did say something big was coming soon, but haven't heard anything. I still believe he's focusing and gonna try to make the Usyk fight happen before the end of the year or early January. We'll see what goes down. But that's it. That's what I got. That's my WBC Champions Report for the end of June here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.